and welcome, pledge, elect the moderator, and then I'll do my presentation. I swear you in.
Okay, so
Basically,
you swear me in.
then do you want to go through all this? Okay.
And would be,
Do it.
normally what I would do,
Yep.
normally do it quite a bit, and then I would just like to normally just tell the voters to go to the clerks if they want to ballot.
How about I'll just go off for whenever you tell me that.
Yeah. Let me do three things.
Yep.
And then I'll do you.
Love it. I'll be me.
All right.
I'll just go take a peek. There's nobody out there. Good evening, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. Good evening. My name is Chris Howell, and I'm the superintendent of schools for RSU14. And just thank you all for coming out on, I think, what's been the most beautiful day that we've had so far this spring, to come and learn a little bit more about the budget and to participate in our democratic process of our public budget meeting and determining the budget, which ultimately will be sent to the voters for the June 10th referendum. So again, just thank you for taking an absolutely beautiful night and spending some time with us. So we are going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance, and if you could stand and join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And I just want to take a moment here to have the RSU14 Board of Directors go ahead and introduce themselves.
Christina Small.
March Gavoni.
Jody Carroll.
Shar Jewell.
Grace Levitt.
Ginny Woodman.
Jessica Bridges.
Okay, and our first order of business for tonight is to elect a moderator for the meeting. So Article 1A, to elect a moderator to preside at the meeting. Are there any nominations from the floor?
I nominate Bill Stockmeyer.
I second that.
Are there any other nominations from the floor? Seeing none, nominations are closed. All those in favor of Bill Stockmeyer for moderator, please use your yellow card. Opposed? Bill, looks like you are the moderator for tonight. And I'm going to go ahead and swear you in. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to support the Constitution of the United States and of the state of Maine, so long as you shall continue to be a citizen thereof, and faithfully discharge to the best of your ability the duties incumbent on you as moderator of the Regional School Unit 14 budget meeting on May 14th, 2025, according to the Constitution and the laws of the state of Maine?
I do.
Okay, I'll have you sign the oath. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I'd like to begin by making sure that all the voters have voting cards, and you should also have a yes/no ballot for a vote on the additional local funds article. If you're a voter and you don't have those things, please go back and see your clerks. If there are any adults in the audience who are not voters, could you just identify yourself by raising your hands? So we have one in front, one back here. Any others? Now, those folks do not have voting cards, so they won't be able to vote. I'm not going to ask them to move. There are only 2 of them, so we should be set there. Okay? I've already sworn in the ballot clerks so they can continue to check in voters. The next order of business is to establish the rules of procedure. I'll generally follow the rules of the Maine Moderator's Manual and applicable provisions of Maine law with a couple of modifications. First, school officials will be allowed to be called upon to answer questions and explain the budget within the areas of their responsibilities. Second, these are budget articles where we're approving dollar amounts. For that reason, we will not allow amendments to amendments so that the meeting doesn't get confused. I would like to emphasize that would not prevent anyone from making their amendment after an earlier amendment is dealt with. So this doesn't prevent you. You don't need to jump up to make the first amendment. You're not prevented from making your amendment after the first amendment is dealt with. It's simply a device to prevent the meeting from getting hopelessly confused as to what number it is we're voting on. And third, by law, we will have a written ballot on Article 13. Is there any objection to the rules of procedure? Seeing none, those are our rules of procedure. As a next order of business, I would like to recognize Superintendent to provide a budget overview. Chris?
All the people who are in my life professionally and personally have told me to keep this as short as possible and as quickly as possible. But it's an important thing for us to talk about tonight, which ultimately the money that's approved here will have an impact on students and adults and the communities of Windham and Raymond. So an extremely important night, and I think it's important that we pause for a few minutes and at least make sure that everyone here is fully understands all that they're going to be voting on tonight. The budget process itself, this starts back on February 26th when I gave my budget presentation to the Board of Directors. But ultimately, Stacy Webster, who's up back there, who does all things budget for us, started this process in October, November with rolling over the budget and then starting to update payroll numbers and then working now with the administrative team to look at what were the needs for this upcoming budget year. The Board of Directors throughout the month of March and beginning of April had a chance to look at the budget, all 4,400 lines, and went through. A-team did the exact same thing, just to make sure that we had left no stone unturned and that the budget we were presenting to you was as responsible as possible. Tonight is the May 14th public budget meeting. You are our legislative body, and you ultimately would be approving the dollar amount that is voted on by the voters on June 10th. And it's my understanding, I think absentee ballots are going to be available even as early as this week, so the voting process will start. But ultimately, in my short presentation here, we have a couple overarching budget questions that I'm sure everybody wants to know, which is where's all this money going to be spent that you're asking for? And then also, what's the impact to my family in new taxes? We understand that in RSU14, we receive most of our funds, about 2/3 from Windham and Raymond residents, and about the other third from the state of Maine through taxpayers across the state of Maine. Ultimately, the decisions you make tonight will have an impact on the classroom. And whether it be a classroom teacher or a support tech or an education program or somebody working in the cafeteria, there are all sorts of people that go beyond the classroom to make everything in RSU14 work, from those who are doing grounds and snow removal to the individuals that keep our computer systems running. We've definitely had some bus challenges this year, but keeping us on the road, making sure that we're well maintained and that we're offering safe transportation, making sure that we have the supplies, everyone who's working in the back to make sure that things are taken care of, and also to make sure that our buildings are taken care of. And you know, one thing we all benefit from, we're here in the Wyndham High School Auditorium. Communities paid off this building this year. So the high school debt is retired, and through our wonderful staff, this looks like the day that it opened. So again, that commitment, but what you're going to be approving tonight connects with all of those. We definitely had our challenges this year. We knew that coming in, our Open the Door, which is just rolling over everything within contracts and benefits and insurance costs and energy costs, we were looking at a 7.5% increase. We have a project, if anyone's noticed, happening down the street for a new middle school, which is well underway, and in the next week is actually going to start going up. But that in itself is over 6% increase. We have contracts for our wonderful staff that work with us and for us. Wyndham and Raymond are becoming desirable, or they always have been desirable communities to live in. Housing prices are going up. And when the state funding formula, two things they look at is how many kids do you have and what's the value of your community. We've seen a reduction lately in what we receive for funding for economically disadvantaged students. Everyone is familiar with the Maine paid leave tax. That is a salary tax that we as an employer are responsible for paying. We've also seen inflation of goods for purchased services and increased energy costs for electricities and motor fuels. This is the first year I can remember where what we're going to pay, we use a lot of propane, natural gas, prices have not gone up. And so our bid that went out for propane for next year will remain the same. And then regular health insurance increases. We also have some great opportunities in this budget. Number one, that wonderful school down the street, 77% of the cost of that is being covered through state subsidy. And I do realize that state subsidy means that taxpayers are paying for it. Yes, absolutely. But it means that the burden for that is being shouldered by communities all across the state of Maine and just not Wyndham and Raymond. In this contract, and I shared it in my letter to staff and the community last week, competitive wages and benefits for our employees. We had fallen behind as a district, and for this upcoming year, our staff will actually be paid at Cumberland County average. So that's what the increase is actually getting us to average. And then one that I know Christine has worked on, and many, many people, Beth Peavy, who's up in the back, increasing the number of slots that we have for pre-K. We're almost to universal, so that all the families who want to have pre-K, we're so close to reaching that milestone. As a district, we're stayed pretty steady for enrollments. We're up a little bit next year by about 30 students, but we definitely have some bubbles going through different places. And as we work through the budget process to get to this final number, one of the things that we work through is what do the enrollments look like? Where are all the students? And can we move staff around? Can we reduce staff? But the number, that 12.75% increase is a much larger increase than where we've been in past years. In fact, it's about two and a half times larger where we've been. And I think it's important as we go into tonight that you understand what that increase is, why it's being driven so much, and to understand that while the expenditure side may have such a large increase, the district is receiving almost a 20% increase in the amount of subsidy that we receive due to construction costs that are being covered by the state of Maine. And I think one of the articles that was one of the community papers, that increase does not translate into a tax increase of that same amount when you look at mill rate. So looking at the budget, and again, we knew we had challenges. We knew that we needed to take a look at providing a responsible budget. Wherever we added a position, we tried to look from within in current budgets, where could we reduce. So Raymond Elementary, there's a reduction of a classroom teacher. There's an increase of a pre-K ed tech. Primary school, a reduction of a teacher, but we've added a pre-K teacher and also adding a pre-K ed tech. We are continuing to purchase and keep a cycle going of 1 grade level of computers. At the high school here, we have a day 1 teacher that was a partner program with day 1 here in town. We found other ways to support that. Reduction of 3.5 ed techs that have been open positions. We added an educational interpreter. Manchester Elementary has actually had an extra teacher that was budgeted, so that was removed, and we are adding another grade 4 classroom teacher, an addition of 0.71 of an assistant cook, and then district-wide, those construction costs. So really just want to spend a couple minutes here driving what's causing the increases. And this is our overall budget increase for this year. If you notice the pie graph, the largest driver, the largest piece is that middle school construction bond, of which, and I'll show in a second, most of it's coming back in subsidy. But again, we have to show that we have the expense. And you're voting on the expense tonight, and you're also going to be voting on some revenue pieces. The smaller piece up in the corner, that regular operating budget, that is our regular year over year, which is about 5.6%. And then pre-K expansion, adding 59 slots to what we can offer for a pre-K program. So let's start first of all on that quadrant for the middle school, and that is an artist rendering of your new middle school down the street. The debt payment that is built into this budget, which is part of that 12.75%, almost half of it. State is subsidizing $3.4 million of that $3.8 million payment. So it means additional revenue that comes in to pay the bill on the opposite side. Local required, the state is having us pay a portion of the bonds for that, so there's $396,000. So for $396,000, the communities are leveraging $3.4 million of additional subsidy. When we move on to operating budget, $3.2 million is up 5.39%. This is our regular year over year. The driving factor for that is negotiated salaries, pushing to get our staff to Cumberland County average, making sure that we can attract and we can retain the absolute best here for our students. And then that all other expenses, that's your heating fuels, that's your motor fuels for the buses and for the vans. In addition, that's also going to be increase in insurance costs. It's going to be supplies, things that it takes to go ahead and run a district. And then last, the big thing that's driving our budget this year, a 1% increase, which is a pre-K expansion. The district cost on that is $625,000. Our portion of that is $115,000, and overall state subsidy is $510,000. So everything represented in the green represents additional funds. Again, we need to show the expenditure side. We also show the revenue side. So when you put it together in a very simple equation and look at our budget, we have negotiated salaries plus the energy costs plus pre-K expansion plus the middle school project minus the additional state funding we're going to receive for pre-K and middle school construction. We're right about 6.6% of what we're actually up, which is a little bit more than even past years. Last year's budget was 5.9%. It's a percent more, largely due to we have a second year increase of our teacher's contract, trying to get ourselves up to that average level. So that revenue breakdown, if you take the whole pie to get to 12.75%, the whole right-hand side of the pie, that is new subsidy that we're going to receive from the state for the middle school. That's new subsidy for pre-K and also some special education costs. We've been able to add some investment revenue and then also some carryover funds to reduce taxation. So that whole right-hand side, that's additional funds to offset that 12.75. On the left-hand side, in the state of Maine, in our funding formula, we are required to spend a certain amount in order to be able to receive state subsidies. So that little red quadrant is what the state is saying. If you want to receive the money on the right, this is the new money that you need to spend. And then the last little piece are additional taxes that we need to levy in Windham and Raymond. Putting this into actual cost, because again, everybody wants to know, what's this actually going to cost me? Voting to accept tonight, by passing the budget, you're voting to accept those pre-K and middle school, that debt subsidy. You're voting to take some of those existing funds to reduce taxation. For Windham residents, our impact to the mill rate for school alone is about 55 cents. And so if you take a $500,000 house, it's about $250. I looked up today, the median house in Windham is $490, and in Raymond it's actually $494,000. It's actually pretty close between the two communities. For Raymond, Raymond is a little different because when the state looks at us, they look at Windham separately than they do Raymond. And when they look at the two of us, they look at how many students do you have, and then what is your fiscal capacity? How much can you afford to pay as a community? Windham has reached that fiscal capacity mark, so any new spending for subsidy-related things comes in a subsidy for Windham. Raymond has not, and so the Raymond tax impact is that Raymond has to spend a little bit more in local taxes because they haven't hit that threshold. And with Raymond, Raymond residents know you're going to be doing a revaluation here at some point in the very, very near future. The state values Raymond, just for main revenue services, about $2.1 billion. Raymond's actual numbers on the book is a little over $1 billion. So if you take the state number, the impact to the mill rate is about 79 cents. And if you take the Raymond number, it's about $1.43. Everyone wants to know, how is this actually going to impact me? So overall cost for a Raymond household or a Windham household. This is a $500,000 house. If you take the school's portion of the mill rate for the Windham side, for a $500,000 house, about $7.40 or about $3,700, all taxes for the year. For Windham side, the Raymond side of the house, it's about $7.08 is the school's portion of the mill rate, or about $3,500 a year for a $500,000 house. What's kind of complicating here is that a $500,000 house in Raymond may actually be currently tax valued at $350,000 because it's been a while since evaluation's been, or $300,000. So try to make here apples to apples. What's the overall impact going to be if I have a $500,000, and how much am I going to be paying per year? Not for the budget increase. This is just in total for taxes. And again, going back to, it's about 55 cents on the mill rate in Windham, and about 79 cents for state valuation, and about $1.43 for Raymond valuation, getting you to that total of those items. And I'm going to wrap it up here with just a couple quick slides. RSU14 is one of the most efficient districts in Cumberland County as far as what we spend per pupil. State average is about $18,300 per pupil. RSU14 is $17,176. MSCD 6 and Gorham are a little less. Gorham's a little bit of an anomaly because some of their costs for their school, since they're a municipal unit, are actually held within the town. So the town has some IT costs, the town has some recreation department takes care of some of the athletic fields, so they don't have a grounds crew. And so pretty similar. Most expensive one in our area based on the 23-24 is Falmouth. And again, this has been our subsidy increases. Next year, we're anticipating to receive a little over $21 million in state subsidy. Last year, this current year, $17.7. And then, so about a $3.3 million increase. And where things go, most everything goes to instruction, special education. Debt service piece of the pie has grown bigger this year. Facilities maintenance, taking care of our buildings, transportation, school admin, system admin. And then lastly, here's where our money comes from. Number one, on the left-hand side, what we're required to raise for taxes to receive subsidy. About 30% next year in state subsidy, 26% in local additional, which goes beyond the state formula, carryover, and then some tuition. So I know people made me promise I'd try to simplify the best that I can, but I really just want to take you back to this slide, which is what's driving and what we're looking at for this year is that 1275 is basically cut in half with additional subsidy, the rest covering teacher salaries, increases to insurance. What we now need to pay for the state has increased tremendously for that quadrant, and the remainder are what we're going to be raising in taxes. So I don't know if there's questions before we move on in the meeting. Happy to answer. Yes. So if you were not to pay, I'll go back to the slide. So let's go with this. This week, well, the voters approved a middle school. This week, the district took out a bond in $105 million. The district has signed a contract based on voting. So what you see up here is if you were to say, you know what, we're not going to continue on with this, there wouldn't be any state subsidy. We would then probably default on our loan, and then there would be all sorts of credit issues and other issues with that. But what you're seeing here is that of that $3.8 million, $3.4 million is coming in additional subsidy and revenue specifically to pay that for the district. So our portion would be that $396. Any other questions?
Thank you, Superintendent Howell. So before we proceed to the articles, just a few, I'll review some of the general requirements for a voter to be recognized and to speak to the other voters of this meeting. Please use the microphone. It's a big room, and everyone would like to hear what it is you have to say. When I recognize you, please state your name and your town first, and then address the meeting. All remarks must be relevant to the motion on the floor. I'd like to emphasize the school board is here because this is their proposed budget and they take ownership of it, but really this is not a school board meeting. It's, nor is it a preliminary public hearing with witnesses to be cross-examined. It's really a meeting of the legislative body, which is you folks. You're the legislative body of the district, and this is your final session to vote on the budget. And so when you speak, you're speaking to each other, which is why the microphone is pointed that way, because you're debating each other and trying to persuade each other about the budget that should be adopted if there should be any debate. And that's why questions go through me, because if you need information, we certainly will get it. But again, you're not really cross-examining witnesses. You're speaking to each other to persuade each other about the budget that should be adopted. If it's necessary, we'll impose rules on limiting debate. Almost never is that necessary. The main reason is our final rule for speaking, which is that moving things along at this meeting is really in your hands because, again, you're the legislative body. This is your meeting. If you think there's been enough debate, come to the mic and say to the moderator, I move that we vote now, or I move the previous question, right? So controlling that aspect is in your hands. That requires a 2/3 vote, which means that we'll stop debate only if it's fair to do so. If 2/3 are ready to vote, it's fair to vote and stop debate. If 2/3 aren't ready to do that, we'll continue on with debating each other about what should happen. So that's how we'll proceed. Okay, any questions about the rules about speaking? Okay, So we'll take up each article in turn. I'll read the article. I'll request an affirmative motion and second from a board member. That just gets it on the floor, and then we're open for discussion. We'll vote on the main motion. If there's an amendment, the amendment will be voted on first, and the article as amended is voted on. I'll announce the outcome. And then we'll vote by raising your cards and saying aye or saying nay, and I'll visually survey and I'll call the vote, except for Article 13, I believe it is, which by statute, Article 13 requires a written ballot. Before we proceed, I just want to, these articles cause confusion, but it's not really that difficult. If you refer to your warrant, like any budget, there's an expenditure side, a revenue side, and a total. The first 11 articles that we vote on, that's the expenditure side, Articles 1 through 11, in different categories of expenditure. And we'll do those first, the expenditure side of the budget. The revenue side of the budget that Superintendent Howell reviewed is Articles 12 and 13. 12 involves your state matching dollars. I'll explain that a little bit more when we get there. 13 are your additional local funds. So that's the revenue side. And then Article 14, is the total school budget. And then we have some miscellaneous financial articles. So that's just to orient you on where we are as we go through things. So without further ado, I'm going to read the first article and ask that a board member make a motion and second it to get it on the floor. Are we all ready? Article 1. To see what sum the regional school unit will be authorized to expend for regular instruction, school board recommends $26,569,363.38. Is there a motion and a second?
I move the article is written.
I second.
Article 1 is on the floor. This is regular instruction. Is there any discussion? Please come to the mic. And ma'am, why don't you just come forward and have a seat, and I'll recognize you next after this gentleman.
Yes, my name is Peter Dollard. How are we supposed to actually vote on all of these individual sums when we don't really know the breakdown? So you can't really look at any of these and say, where could there be cost savings or something along the way? All we have is a net number that you give us.
Someone care to address that?
What I can tell you is what's in that is regular instruction, which includes most of our regular classroom teachers, pre-K to 2 instructional programs, our alternative education programs, our multilingual programs, and our gifted and talented programs are all wrapped up within that number.
Again, all of these, how does the average citizen look at these numbers and make any sense of it? We see these are all very large numbers, but how can somebody, without just complete trust in all of you, which I'm sure you do a good job, but without just putting complete trust in you that these are the numbers that are necessary, how are we supposed to make a legitimate vote on this?
Yeah, everything is posted on the district website, and every single one of these cost centers and areas were reviewed in public budget meetings that took place throughout March and April. I agree with you, it's difficult to do it in this moment, absolutely.
And again, how many of the actual citizens of the town have been privy to all of this?
Okay, thank you. Ma'am, I'm going to recognize you now to speak. And again, just want to remind folks, we're debating each other. Well, I recognize this woman. I'll recognize someone here next.
I'm Diane Shively. I'm a Raymond resident. I feel that with the middle school expenses coming online and people being really challenged for money, that this is not the right time to expand the pre-K program. So I would like to see that pre-K funds not move forward.
Thank you. And yes, ma'am.
So I'd just like to respond to both of those folks. So all of the budget meetings that we had, and we went through in detail every single line item at the meetings. They were public meetings. They were well advertised. Very few people took the time to show up to the live meetings to ask questions. And I understand the way the format of this is set up. It makes it difficult, as you said, to know what's in there. But the time to learn what was in there was to come to the budget meetings when we were forming the budget. So the information that we deliberated over is available on the website for people to review. And it's unfortunate that folks may have been caught unawares, apparently, about how we come up with a budget. But it is all done publicly, and it is discussed line item by line item. We get a 3-ring binder that's about this deep, full of pages, that literally goes through every single line item. And so for folks that are looking to cut specific things, that is the time to bring that forward. Now, is there an opportunity tonight to make changes? Absolutely. It's in the rules of this voting, so if you wanted to cut Article 1 by 10%, then you can make that motion. And then it would be up to the administration, if that passed, to then decide what gets cut that's covered under Article 1. That's how that works. And as far as the pre-K expansion, like 99 point whatever percentage of that is being covered by the state. So that does not, the majority of that is not covered by Wyndham Raymond taxpayers solely. It is covered by the state. So if I was looking to be more fiscally responsible and wanting to make cuts, that's not where I would start because that's covered by the state. So that's my responses on both of those. Thank you.
Any further discussion on Article 1? Okay. Seeing none, we're now going to move to a vote on Article 1. Again, the way we'll do that is I'll ask those who wish to vote yes to raise their cards and say aye, and then for those to vote no, to raise their cards and say nay. Everybody ready? All in favor, raise your cards and say aye. Thank you. All opposed, raise your cards and say nay. Thank you. Article 1 carries. Article 2, to see what sum the regional school unit will be authorized to expend for special education. School board recommends $11,555,413.22. Is there a motion and a second?
I move the article is written.
I second it.
Article 2 is on the floor. Any discussion? Yes, sir.
Just curious over the amount, 11 million something dollars. How many students do we have in special ed?
The question is, how many students do we have in special ed?
Almost 600.
600.
600. And it's $11 million. So that seems a bit excessive. I just making that point.
Thank you. Any further discussion on Article 2? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All in favor say aye and raise your cards. Aye. Thank you. All opposed say nay and raise your cards. Thank you. Article 2 carries. Article 3, and I will just explain the $0. Career and technical education is direct funded to the entity or entities supplying it. This is kept here as a placeholder. That's why it's $0. So I just want to point that out. Article 3, to see what sum the regional school unit will be authorized to expend for career and technical education. School board recommends $0. Is there a motion and a second?
I move the article is written.
Second.
Okay, since I've explained that, unless there's an objection, we're just going to move to a vote. It's $0, okay? No objection. All in favor say aye and raise your cards. Aye. Thank you. All opposed say nay and raise your cards. Article 3 carries. Article 4, to see what sum the regional school unit will be authorized to expend for other instruction. School board recommends $1,359,668.88. Is there a motion and a second on Article 4?
I move the article as written.
Second.
Article 4 is on the floor. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote. All in favor, raise your cards and say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All opposed, raise your cards and say nay. Thank you. Article 4 carries. Article 5, to see what sum the regional school unit would be authorized to expend for student and staff support. School board recommends $5,969,623.35. Is there a motion and a second?
I move the article as written.
Second.
Article 5 is on the floor. This is student and staff support. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote. All in favor, say aye and raise your cards.
Aye.
Thank you. All opposed, say nay and raise your cards. Thank you. Article 5 carries. Article 6, to see what sum the regional school unit will be authorized to expend for system administration. School board recommends $1,705,500.71. Is there a motion and a second?
I move the article as written.
Second.
Article 6 is on the floor. This is system administration. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote. All in favor, say aye and raise your cards.
Aye.
Thank you. All opposed, say nay and raise your cards. Thank you. Article 6 carries. Article 7, to see what sum the regional school unit will be authorized to expend for school administration. School board recommends $3,526,369.30. Is there a motion and a second?
I move the article as written.
Second.
Article 7 is on the floor for discussion. This is school administration. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote. All in favor, say aye and raise your cards.
Aye.
Thank you. All opposed, say nay and raise your cards. Thank you. Article 7 carries. Article 8, to see what sum the regional school unit be authorized to expend for transportation and buses. School board recommends $3,992,595.59. Is there a motion and a second?
I move the article as written.
Second.
Article 8 is on the floor. This is transportation and buses. Any discussion? Yes, sir. If you'd state your name and town when you get to the mic.
Good evening. My name is Brandon Bernard. I live in Wyndham. I just want to recognize the challenges with finding enough bus drivers this year. And I'm wondering, is there enough money here to provide for additional bus drivers or sufficient bus drivers for next year? Thank you.
Is there a response?
Yes, there is money there, and Brandon, it's a great question. There are open positions, and we do train. And so, yes, there's money to support that, and also, while I have a public audience, anyone who would like to be a bus driver, we will train you to be a bus driver, and we'll gladly accept, and especially afternoon runs for sports and other things, we have availability to train, and we'll take care of that.
Okay. Thank you. Any further discussion on Article 8? Seeing none, we'll vote. All in favor, say aye and raise your cards.
Aye.
Thank you. All opposed, say nay and raise your cards. Thank you. Article 8 carries. Article 9, to see what sum the regional school unit would be authorized to expend for facilities maintenance. School board recommends $9,077,081.36. Is there a motion and a second?
I move the article as written.
Second.
Article 9 is on the floor for discussion. This is facilities maintenance. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote. All in favor, say aye and raise your cards.
Aye.
Thank you. All opposed, say nay and raise your cards. Thank you. Article 9 carries. Article 10, to see what sum the regional school unit will be authorized to expend for debt service and other commitments. School board recommends $3,825,779. Is there a motion and a second?
I move the article as written.
Second.
Article 10 is on the floor, debt service and other commitments. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote. All in favor, say aye and raise your cards.
Aye.
Thank you. All opposed, say nay and raise your cards. Thank you. Article 10 carries. Article 11, to see what sum the regional school unit will be authorized to expend for all other expenditures. School board recommends $280,000. Is there a motion and a second?
I move the article as written.
Second.
Article 11 is on the floor. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote. All in favor say aye and raise your cards.
Aye.
Thank you. All opposed say nay and raise your cards. Thank you. Article 11 carries. That completes the expenditure side of the budget. This next article is a little bit confusing, so I will explain it. This is the article that qualifies the RSU for state matching dollars. On the left, you see a total number for both towns is $48,193,000. That is both the state and the local share of the number. On the right-hand side is what's called the required local contribution. The state share is the mathematical difference. The state share is not shown and is the mathematical difference between the left-hand column and the right-hand column. So if you took the left-hand number and subtracted the right-hand number, that would be your state subsidy, roughly $21 million, roughly. This is how it's required to be shown by statute as the article. And I recognize it's a little bit confusing. So the number on the left is the state plus the local. The number on the right is the local, and the state is the difference between the two, okay? So with that as the explanation, I'm going to read the article. Article 12, to see what sum the regional school unit will appropriate for the total cost of funding public education from kindergarten to grade 12 as described in the Essential Programs and Services Funding Act, and to see what sum the regional school unit will raise and assess as each municipality's contribution to the total cost of funding public education from kindergarten to grade 12, as described in the Essential Programs and Services Funding Act, in accordance with the Maine Revised Statutes Title 28, Section 15688. And the recommended amounts are set forth below. I'll read the totals. The total appropriation, that's the state and the local, is $48,193,763.54. And the total to be raised from both towns together is $27,177,469.07. Do I have a motion and a second?
I move the article as written.
Second.
Okay, and before I have discussion, I will also explain, because I get this question every time, the statute says kindergarten. You have pre-K. By definition in the statute, kindergarten includes pre-K, so you don't have to worry about pre-K. It's there, okay? I get the question every time, so I'll just explain that. Okay, any discussion on this article? Yes, sir.
You mentioned pre-K, and I think you've allocated $620,000 for the 59 positions. That'll increase. That's more than $10,000 per position. You don't find nothing wrong with that? I mean, $10,000 basically for the rest of us to serve somebody else's kids there, whatever, basically is daycare. Why is that?
Would you care to respond?
Based on one of our earlier presentations, when you look at the difference between the expense to add those additional 59 spaces and the revenue without the subsidy that we'll receive from the state, if you're looking at a $300,000 home, that would be about $5 for the year.
Have you tried to buy a $300,000 home in Wyndham lately?
Just to give you a sense, the cost for the local taxpayers around $5 a year for that additional pre-K expansion of 59 children who would attend.
It still doesn't answer my question. Why are we subsidizing somebody's kids' daycare?
So first of all, pre-K is not daycare. Pre-K is early learning, and students go through an academic program.
How early is early learning?
These are 4-year-olds.
Pardon?
4-year-olds that are coming in.
4-year-olds.
Yep.
And aside from that, you have educational tech for pre-K?
Yep. So for a pre-K classroom, the state statute has us at 16 students, and we have a teacher and an ed tech that serve that class, and they're with those students all day long, and they have a complete academic program in which students are learning their letters, learning their numbers. They are learning early writing skills. And
Well, isn't that what the teacher does? Isn't that what the pre-K teacher does?
Do you want me to jump?
go ahead, I'm not sure.
I think, so for kindergarten, we have a 16-to-1 ratio, so one kindergarten teacher for 16 students.
Okay.
For pre-K, we're required, it's an 8-to-1, so we have 2 adults in every pre-K classroom. So the classroom doesn't exceed 16 students, and you're required, you need a teacher and an educational technician to meet those ratio requirements. The younger learners need a little more support.
Well, I mean, you just said they're 4 years old, so there's no younger. They were all 4 years old, right?
Right, but to meet the the state requirements in Chapter 124, we need to have an 8-to-1 ratio, so that's one teacher and one ed tech in every pre-K classroom.
But maybe if I can just answer, it isn't a daycare. It's not serving a daycare function. It's an academic program. It's a school program.
Well, what is kindergarten teaching?
Kindergarten is the next set of skills as students work through a progression, and first grade as an extension, then a first.
I mean, I know of people that came to, and I don't want to mix apples and oranges too much, that went through the special ed program and can't even do cursive writing or tell time and stuff, yet they graduated. So anytime this comes up like pre-K, special education teacher or whatever, it just raises a flag and stuff. It's just, your explanation, go ahead.
Okay, so I think you've made your point. This article is the article that qualifies for state subsidy. If you would like to cut the taxes, you probably want to speak to the next article, because if we need to raise the required local contribution to qualify for the state subsidy.
Well, there's nothing that says we have to bring in 59 more pre-K,
Right,
is that
but
correct?
you are required to address the article that's on the floor, which is the article to qualify for state subsidy. So we're allowing some latitude, and you've spoken, so we should probably move on. Any further discussion? Yes, sir? Again, we want to speak to the article that's on the floor.
Yes. Louis Salette, Wyndham. So to try and help clarify the question that I was hearing,
Sir, I don't want to talk about the pre-K program. We're talking about the article that's on the floor.
correct,
Okay.
correct. I'm just clarifying to try and aid
I'd like to
moving
move on
the
from
discussion.
pre-K.
Correct.
Pre-K is not on the floor.
Correct.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. So,
Because I asked this gentleman to stop speaking about pre-K after listening respectfully, so please don't address pre-K. Okay? We don't need to address it any further. You don't need to respond. But if you'd like to address state subsidy for education, you've got the floor.
never mind.
I think the problem is that the mic is facing the audience because, as indicated, we're trying to debate each other to persuade each other how to vote. But some people have questions and want to ask questions, and so they're sort of caught betwixt and between, so they're not quite up to the mic because they're kind of facing both. So I just ask people maybe to step a little closer to the mic and do the best they can to get right up to it, because it is a little bit hard to hear. Yes.
Mr. Moderator, can
Yes.
I make a comment that there is state subsidy being received for a pre-K program? So may I speak on this article regarding that state subsidy?
Well, again, we're already past the articles on the expenditures. We're talking about the general subsidy for the district.
Yes, I just wanted to make a comment on the state subsidy
Let's do
for
this,
revenues.
because if we're going to talk about pre-K, then in fairness, I need to ask the first gentleman to to come back up, because I cut him off, right, sir? And he should be allowed to continue first before I recognize the second gentleman or anyone else.
So point of clarification, can I ask if we are allowed to discuss specific portions of the state subsidy that we're receiving on the revenue side in this article?
We can, but again, if we're going to talk about pre-K, then we should first ask that gentleman if he wishes to speak, in fairness to him, because I told him that I thought we had talked long enough. Are you okay? And then I'd like to go back to the second gentleman, if we're going to do that, and then I'd like to go to you.
I'm just asking clarification from a procedure perspective. My understanding is this article is discussing state subsidy on
It
the
is talking
revenue
about
side?
state
Okay,
subsidy.
I just want to make sure that would be the comment that I'd like
Right.
to make.
So if people think that I'm being too strict, that's my ruling, is that we shouldn't talk about pre-K. If the meeting feels otherwise, here's how we should proceed. Someone should make a motion to overrule the moderator, and if that's seconded, then we'll have a vote to overrule me, and then we'll talk more about pre-K. That's how we would, and that's fine. That's completely fine. So shall we, if someone would like to overrule the moderator to talk about pre-K, someone should raise their hand and say, I move to overrule the moderator. And I'll take that motion. We can do that. That's perfectly, completely fine.
Mr.
So,
Moderator,
yes.
I move the question.
Okay. The previous question's been moved. So now is there a second? This would cut off debate. Second. Okay. So now we have a motion to cut off debate. A yes vote means you want to cut off debate and move to, and then we would vote on Article 12. A no vote means you would like to keep debating. Everybody understand where we are? So all in favor of the motion to cut off debate, say aye and raise your cards. Aye. All opposed, say nay and raise your cards. Thank you. The motion carries. So now we're going to proceed to a vote on Article 12. All in favor of the article as written, say aye and raise your cards. Aye. Thank you. All opposed, say nay and raise your cards. Article 12 carries. Okay. Article 13 raises the additional local funds. This will require a written ballot. I'll read the article first, and then I'll explain how we vote by written ballot. Clerks, I think, are here with the ballot boxes, so thank you. All right. To see what sum the regional school unit will raise and appropriate in additional local funds, recommend $17,788,122.22, which exceeds the state's essential programs and services allocation model by that amount, $17,788,122.22, as required to fund the budget recommended by the school board. Is there a motion and a second on Article 13?
I move the article as written.
Is there a second? Thank you. Article 13 is on the floor for discussion. Any discussion of Article 13? This is in addition to the amounts being raised in Article 12. Yes, sir. Okay. So now we're going to vote. You each have a card. Are these the cards with yes and no boxes? Or okay. So you should indicate your choice yes or no. If you don't have a pen or pencil, did the clerks distribute pens and pencils? They
Yes.
did. Okay. So indicate your choice. And then how many ballot boxes are there? Where's the other ballot box? Okay. Well, let's get where it is first. He's going to bring it in the room. Let's wait till he gets here. So we're going to have one up here on the stage. Just one up here? Yeah. That'll work just fine. He's going to bring it over here then? Okay. So the suggestion is that to vote, come down these more or less center aisles and then go back the other way. If anyone has a mobility problem, here's what I like to ask. Don't take someone else's ballot and bring it for them. We've had complaints in other districts that people are voting more than once. I know that's not what's happening. People are just being kind to their neighbor. If you have a mobility issue, what I'd like you to do is raise your ballot up right now. We'll have the clerks come get it for you. If anyone, just, raise your hand. And I'd ask the clerks to go get those ballots, please, first. And put it in the box. Okay, anyone else? Okay. Now, I think most of the people are in the center aisle, so if you, or near the center aisle, so come down that aisle first, and then maybe go back and around that way. And then the people on the side, I think you can make your way. People in front, same. Thank you.
I like it. I'll push you right over. You would too. And then you laugh. You know.
Has any voter not voted yet? If so, raise your hand and wave it. I don't see anyone, so I'll declare the voting closed. I'll ask the clerks to count the ballots now. tell you the rest of the story. If we could come back to order, I'll announce the results of the vote. The results of the vote on the written ballot for Article 13 were 57 yes and 20 no, so Article 13 carries. Article 14 is the summary of the total school budget, pretty much a rehash of what's been voted thus far. I'll read the article. To see what sum the regional school unit will authorize the school board to expend for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2025 and ending June 30, 2026, from the regional school unit's contribution to the total cost of funding public education from kindergarten to grade 12, as described in the Essential Programs and Services Funding Act, local funds for non-state funded school construction projects, additional local funds for school purposes under the Maine Revised Statutes, Title 20A, Section 15690, unexpended balances, tuition receipts, state subsidy, and other receipts for the support of schools. School Board recommends $67,861,394.79. Is there a motion and a second on Article 14?
I move the article as written.
Second.
Article 14 is on the floor. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote. All in favor, raise your cards and say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All opposed, raise your cards and say nay. Thank you. Article 14 carries. Article 15 is the Adult Education Program. To see if the regional school unit will appropriate $698,805.51 for adult education and raise $363,038.89 as the local share, with authorization to expend any additional incidental or miscellaneous receipts in the interest and for the well-being of the adult education program. Is there a motion and a second on this article?
I move the article as written.
Second.
Article 15 is on the floor. This is adult education. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote. All in favor, say aye and raise your cards.
Aye.
Thank you. All opposed, say nay and raise your cards. Thank you. Article 15 carries. Article 16. In addition to amounts approved in the preceding articles, shall the school board be authorized to expend such other sums as may be received from federal or state grants or programs or other sources during the fiscal year for school and other program purposes, provided that such grants, programs, or other sources do not require the expenditure of other funds not previously appropriated. Is there a motion and a second?
I move the article as written.
Second.
Article 16 is on the floor. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote. All in favor say aye and raise your cards.
Aye.
Thank you. All opposed say nay and raise your cards. Thank you. Article 16 carries. Article 17, shall the school board be authorized to transfer up to $3,970,000 from unexpended balances to the school capital reserve fund and to expend up to $3,970,000 from said reserve fund for the following purposes in addition to amounts the voters have previously authorized to be expended from the school capital reserve fund for these or other projects. Now, these are all, well, I'll read the nature of the facilities, the project, and the project estimate. District-wide conversion of lighting to LED, $100,000 project estimate. District-wide door replacement, $50,000 project estimate. District-wide grounds improvement, stadium, tennis courts, etc., $70,000 project estimate. District-wide network infrastructure, $125,000 project estimate. District-wide pavement improvements, $100,000 project estimate. District-wide playground equipment, $25,000 project estimate. Primary school roof upgrade and structural improvements, $500,000 project estimate. Raymond Elementary HVAC and electrical mechanical upgrades, $3 million project estimate. Total, $3,970,000. Is there a motion and a second on this article?
I move the article as written.
Second.
Is there discussion on Article 17? Seeing none, we'll vote. All in favor say aye and raise your cards.
Aye.
Thank you. All opposed say nay and raise your cards. Thank you. Article 17 carries. Article 18, shall the school board be authorized to transfer amounts exceeding 5% of the total appropriation for any cost center to another cost center or among other cost centers for the 2025-2026 fiscal year providing that transfers shall not be permitted to increase the authorized total school budget. Is there a motion and a second?
I move the article as written.
Second.
Article 18 is on the floor. Any discussion? Seeing none, will vote. All in favor say aye and raise your cards.
Aye.
Thank you. All opposed say nay and raise your cards. Thank you. Article 18 carries. Before we adjourn, I just want to remind folks that the referendum vote is on June 10. There's a second question on the referendum. The first vote is, do you approve what this meeting did? As Superintendent Howell mentioned, absentee ballot voting will be opening, and then you vote on June 10 at your polls if you haven't voted by absentee ballot. There's a second question this year, which is every 3 years, the voters vote on whether to continue for another 3 years that validation referendum process. So you get to vote to continue to have that second referendum vote for another 3 years, and you do that every 3 years, and this is the year you vote on whether to continue that or not. So just by way of, so that you understand what that is. So I wanted to thank the clerks for helping us out tonight. Thank you all for coming. I'll take a motion from anybody to adjourn. Okay, and I'll take that by acclamation. Thank you again, everyone. So aren't you dying to know what happened?
Yes.
So there's a statute that authorizes emergency borrowing, but you have to get it approved at a budget meeting, which means budget validation referendum. So 3 times we tried to explain to the voters that if they default, there's going to be a big court battle. Actually, in Maine, you can actually take property from creditors. And they kept, they didn't care. Maybe on the 3rd or the 4th try, we got it passed. They paid it back over 7 or 10 years. And it was just, I think it was that, or it was like an Excel spreadsheet error that they didn't fix for 3 years or something. So it was not a great thing. The bank was sweating it out. Everybody was sweating it out. It's very rare. There was a period where New York City was going to default on its debts. There have been a couple of cases on lease purchase agreements. There was a lease purchase agreement in Virginia where they used it to build a golf course. The golf fees were going to pay the bonds, but didn't. There was a default on a lease purchase agreement, which...
How do you lease purchase a golf course?
The voters were like, they didn't care. So pretty rare.
Well, especially that one where it's all money coming in to pay for it.
This would be sad. I mean, the explanation would be very complicated. You did handle it very well, I thought. The question. You have to deconstruct for me what happened with the question about the pre-K and the school board member. Like, I was trying to get beyond it. But anyway.
I won't worry about it.
Yeah, I'm not worried about it. I think the person was trying to be helpful.
Yes, I think that's exactly right.
It's like, take the victory.
Well, and that's, we knew the outcome was going to be, so just go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah. But really, like, if I were that gentleman and I was reopened to let someone else say something about PK and I had shut him down, I'd be like pretty upset. Like, so I was like, all right, if I'm going to do it, first I'm going to go back to him, then I'm going to go back to the guy that I didn't let speak at all. Even though, like, we're trying to help.
Well, at that point, just move the meeting.
Which person, is it this person standing? Yeah. Yeah. I should explain him.
Yeah. Yeah.
77. This is what I have. Stuff in, I'm going to give that back to you.
Okay.
Yeah, I wasn't going to stick things on. Most people are keeping state stuff. Have a great time. Yeah, she is. Oh, good. She's watching. She's watching. No, she's so diverse. Okay, bye, Chris.
appreciate the feedback. Yeah, let's get through Saturday.